Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you're elsewhere. We are now starting our panel discussion on the role of hydrogen in energy transition. The title of our panel is Hydrogen, Oil of the 21st Century. You heard a lot about hydrogen lately, and we are not going to waste time. I'll introduce our speakers later, but now we'll begin with a few opening remarks by our Deputy Executive Secretary, Mr. Mariasin, directly from Geneva.
Please confirm that you can hear me. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of UNEC to this important event, looking at the role of hydrogen, well, globally and in Central Asia. I wish I could be there with you, but I thought it's still very important that even if it's online, that I'm able to join the opening of this conversation. As we all know, in the past several years, hydrogen has attracted an enormous attention everywhere. It's in the press, but often in the press without the full appreciation of its role and the complexities of deploying hydrogen at scale and in an economically viable way. Many of the UNEC member states, and here I pause to say that the UN Economic Commission for Europe is part of the United Nations, serving 56 countries, very wide range of countries, from Canada to Kazakhstan. Many of our member states, for example, Germany, the Netherlands, the Russian Federation, Spain, United States, and of course the European Union at large, have developed national hydrogen strategies. Many countries in the region, including in Central Asia, are showing great interest in hydrogen. And hydrogen is seen by countries both as an economic opportunity and as an important part of their national decarbonization strategies. Let's look at the economics of it. Some earlier analysis by the European Union shows that clean hydrogen could meet some 24% of world energy demand by 2050. With annual sales exceeding 600 billion. These are estimates of the market potential, but as is always the case with estimates, they need to be tested by reality, and this testing has to come from the private sector. So far, according to the International Energy Agency's Global Hydrogen Review issued this year, there is a very significant gap between the market potential, the expectation, and the reality. Only 4% of the announced low-carbon hydrogen production projects have reached actual final investment decision or construction phase. Only 4% of projects that were announced, that were talked about, have actually made it to practical implementation phase. So let us pause and consider this as a reality check on the economic viability. Secondly, regarding the potential of hydrogen when it comes to decarbonization of the economy. And we know that Kazakhstan is a very good example of a country that, while being a major oil and gas producer, does have an ambitious decarbonization strategy and has set targets announced in Glasgow and reconfirmed by the leadership of the country more recently, that will call for a significant rethink of Kazakhstan's energy mix, including gradual and just phasing out of coal, but will also need to look at the role of hydrogen. So how can we use the potential of hydrogen in decarbonizing our economies? From the UNEC's perspective, the best place to start developing a viable hydrogen economy are industrial clusters of heavy industry. Currently, they represent a major point source of greenhouse gas emissions, both carbon dioxide and methane. And particularly interesting are the clusters where currently in Central Asia and in Kazakhstan, the efficiency of material use and the overall industrial energy efficiency are low, below global average. Let me not go into the details of specific industries, but the experts in the room will know what I'm talking about. By the way, just as a side note, but an important one, these industrial clusters are also associated with very important sources of pollution, mid-range and short-range air pollutants such as nitrogen and sulfur oxides that affect the health and well-being of population at large. And we deal with this at UNECE as well as part of our environment team's work on the UNECE Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution. Now, this is the starting point. However, we believe that what countries need to have at their hand is a sustainable hydrogen production and deployment pathway. Think through the entire ecosystem, understand the uses, understand the bottlenecks, and understand the economics. Look at the technical, policy, and investment barriers and develop strategies to overcome. We have launched a regional project that looks precisely at these, and it has a way to look at national potential, but also analyzes collaboration between countries, potential for regional projects, and growing the hydrogen export in the region and beyond. So this is where we believe the gist of this conversation should be. Sustainability of use of hydrogen from the economic perspective, clear understanding of the role it plays in decarbonizing the economy, and then of course, looking at export trade in hydrogen more, in a longer term. Now, what I'd like to leave you with, of course, is a set of questions that I believe are still in need of answers. First, how can we define green and clean hydrogen if we use the life cycle approach? You might have heard that there is a task force under UNECE, under the Energy Committee of UNECE, that is looking at hydrogen, including the questions of classification of hydrogen. And the recommendation of many experts is to understand the full life cycle of production and deployment of hydrogen, not just look at the primary source of energy used for whatever technological process is there to produce hydrogen. And that will probably add nuances to the labels we've been hearing so far: green, blue, pink, hydrogen, and so on. Secondly, understand that there is a choice between domestic use and, I would say, even local use as part of industrial processes in growing an export market for hydrogen. Third, demystify hydrogen as a source of fuel for consumers, for example, for transport. There are very good examples of where it works. It requires an ecosystem, it requires scale, and it requires many conditions. I'm sure you will talk about this, but we need to have clarity on whether or not hydrogen is the sustainable source of fuel for transport in the coming decades. And then finally, in my view, very importantly, look at the broader question of green ammonia and the whole ecosystem of investment opportunities that do not just look at hydrogen as a solution in industrial processes, but we will look at the broader evolution, the broader pathway, future of several industries, including petrochemicals, fertilizers, and industrial and energy related hydrogen, so that we understand what are the patterns of demand, what is the future of the market, and how does a country like Kazakhstan and countries in Central Asia take advantage of it going forward. So is it the oil of the 21st century? I personally don't know the answer. I hope you do. But with this, let me close. Wish you a very good discussion, and thank you again our partners at the Ministry of Energy of the Republic of Kazakhstan and at KazEnergy for support in exploring this important topic, as well as in the broader conversation on sustainable energy pathways in the UNICEF region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mariasin. Now we will turn to Mr. Timur Sergazin, who is the Director of the Department of Atomic Energy and Industry of the Ministry of Energy of Kazakhstan. Your department deals with hydrogen as a part of your portfolio, so please tell us a few opening remarks. I'm sorry, you're there.
Да. Спасибо большое за возможность, что дали возможность принять участие и предоставили слово. Я рад всех поприветствовать на данном круглом столе, посвященном вопросам водорода как топлива 21 века. Сегодня мир непредупрежденно сталкивается с проблемой повышения температуры. Безусловно, целью по борьбе с данной проблемой является снижение выбросов парниковых газов. Казахстан один из первых ратифицировал Парижское соглашение. В рамках реализации данного документа к 2030 году Республика Казахстан намерена сократить выброс парниковых газов на 30%. Вместе с тем страны по всему миру ставят перед собой цели по сокращению выбросов парниковых газов, и одним из перспективных направлений для достижения данной цели видится развитие водородной энергетики. Казахстаном также предприняты первые шаги в данной области. Так, на сегодняшний день Министерством энергетики Республики Казахстан разработан проект концепции развития водородной энергетики в Республике Казахстан, который и определит будущее водородной энергетики в нашей стране. Документ в данный момент находится на стадии согласования с государственными органами. Если немного рассказать о видении Казахстана по развитию водородной энергетики, то это в первую очередь развитие научно-технологической, промышленной инфраструктуры для производства, хранения, транспортировки водорода, а также развитие инфраструктуры для водородного транспорта. Проект концепции развития водородной энергетики предусматривается в 4 этапа. Если первые 2 этапа будут акцентированы на выполнение исследовательских работ, создание новых возобновляемых источников энергии, это ветер, солнце, ГЭС, для дальнейшего направления электроэнергии на производство водорода, то в последующих этапах появятся все предпосылки для перехода к зеленой экономике без ущерба для страны и нашего населения. А также будет развитая инфраструктура, что даст возможность Казахстану стать лидером отрасли в Средней Азии. При этом необходимо определить большую работу для проведения законодательной базы, нормы, стандарты, иных документов в соответствии с мировыми нормами водородной политики. В проекте концепции также предусмотрены дальнейшие действия по внесению изменений в сопутствующие нормативно-правовые документы. Будут предусмотрены инструменты стимулирования, поддержки, устранения регуляторных барьеров и иных преференций для отрасли. Кроме того, хоть и политика многих стран уже направлена на развитие водородной энергетики, она все еще находится на ранней стадии своего развития. В этой связи Казахстан намерен включиться в так называемую гонку по удешевлению конечной стоимости производства водорода. Для этих целей в проекте концепции предусмотрены реализация международных водородных проектов по производству хранения водорода. При этом отрасли необходимы компетентные кадры, это несомненно. Будет также организовано в необходимом объеме дополнительные профессиональное образование. Это мы знаем, что повышение квалификации и профессиональная переподготовка. Достижение таких амбициозных целей требует общих усилий в научно-технической сфере, реализация пилотных проектов и привлечение инвестиций. Казахстан придает огромное значение международному сотрудничеству и высоко ценит сотрудничество с Европейской экономической комиссией ООН. Считаю, что мы имеем все возможности для достижения высоких показателей в этом направлении совместными усилиями. Благодарю за внимание. Еще раз спасибо за предоставленное слово.
Спасибо, господин Сергазин. Очень приятно. I hope that we at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe will be able to help with some of those things, including with classification and norms and standards needed to fully develop a hydrogen economy. Now I'd like to ask my colleague, Ms. Hamrakulova, to tell us more about the project that we've developed about the production of hydrogen in Central Asia and some key takeaways.
Так, спасибо. Можно презентацию включить? If you allow me, colleagues, I will continue in English. Yeah, okay, well, the presentation appeared. I just want to start maybe with a very general introduction of what UNECE is, and I know that Mr. Maryasin in the beginning already said that we are the one of the regional commissions, which covers 56 member states, and we work on the area of policy dialogue and also in the settings of development regulations and standards, also the exchange and application of best practices, knowledge sharing, technical cooperation for in specific directions and for specific projects. And in the Sustainable Energy Division, we also focus now on different, let's say, on the area how to build the resilient energy systems. And the practice showed that this is one of the very important but very complex also issues that includes a lot of considerations and actions to be done. And this is also a very actual aspect that the energy system would be resilient. At the UNECE, we think that this would be applying, let's call it trilemma, that looking from different perspectives, from the perspective of energy security, affordability, and environment sustainability, that the energy systems, only in that case, the energy systems can be considered resilient and can lead to, let's say, the optimal contribution and the optimal development, in sustainable development. Here I wouldn't touch more, but I want just to say that hydrogen production and the work on decarbonization in Central Asia is one of the priority areas of work for our organization. And I will more speak about what exactly we were doing in this area and how this is, why and how we're focusing on the development of the hydrogen ecosystem. So we have a project on carbon neutrality, which actually looks into different possibilities how to reach carbon neutrality and how can the decarbonization process can be. One of the, let's say, possibilities would be also to look into the hydrogen. And then at the UNECE, we developed the policy on the policy side, but also the technology briefs. And one of the technology briefs covering the hydrogen. This is just a snapshot from this publication, which shows that we're looking from a perspective of the hydrogen value chain and looking into the sphere of how the hydrogen is produced, how it is stored, how it's used, what is needed for its transportation. And actually, to continue on this, we looked also what is the level of readiness of countries and how the countries can actually, at what stage they're currently in order to, and what they have to do in order to develop the hydrogen ecosystem. The level of readiness is indicated from 1 to 2, and within Central Asian context, the countries are average on the level 2, but actually some are even on level 1. So we still have a lot to do, and we are, let's say, in the beginning process. For more information on this could be found on our website, where the whole publication is available. Another, let's say, in continuation of the same path, we have a project which covers the sustainable hydrogen production. And then, as it was mentioned, we looked into this from a perspective of sub-regional assessment, but also from a perspective of national assessment. So we covered several countries and looked into the possibilities for a country to develop its hydrogen ecosystem. Within the framework of this project, we clustered, let's say, our findings and recommendations in a sense which countries have more and which countries have less potential to be. So to cover the we looked into Armenia, Belarus, and Moldova, where currently it's a bit less, let's say, potential, or practically no, how it's saying here, potentially for low carbon development. While the next, let's say, combination of Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan, two countries which are, as we know, the major energy exports, but who can potentially develop a hydrogen economy if they create additional incentives, and that requires a lot of work also. Again, classification, not classification, let's say, gathering countries into in terms of their potential towards hydrogen development, and would be also looking into Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan from the perspective of using their hydropower potential for the hydrogen production. And then we know that Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are, let's say, considered the most, of having the most impressive moment, or having the biggest potential to develop the hydrogen economy, and that still would require, let's say, focusing on the hydrogen, on developing and strengthening hydrogen strategies. This is just a snapshot of my almost last slide, showing that what could be the path for development, that some countries who are saying having hidden potential can actually move to a little bit better, depending on how would be the ambition of a country and what actions would be done actually in this direction, that some countries have also to be, have potential to be the leaders in this area. And again, we will discuss today, it's just my last slide, to indicate what type of actions needed in order to continue work in this area. I believe that we will have a discussion from different perspectives on what is needed to be done, so I will not focus on this, but it requires work from technological perspective, from building the capacity, from working in the legislative and regulatory framework, and also focusing on project implementation, as it was said before. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we open our panel discussion. We have 6 panelists with us. I'll try to ask each of them one question, and I'd like to ask you to answer relatively quickly so we have some time for questions from the audience. So let's start with Mr. Yerdula Tabulov, who is a researcher of the Department of Alternative Energy of KMG Engineering. I understand that your department has developed the first assessment of how the potential of hydrogen technologies in Kazakhstan, and also you've developed a map of potential places or locations for carbon capture and storage in Kazakhstan, like an atlas. So my first question to you is, in your view, should hydrogen be developed only on a national level, or maybe we need a regional approach when we build hydrogen infrastructure? And can Kazakhstan, or should Kazakhstan take lead in this kind of regional approach?
Thank you. I think maybe now it's too early to say who is leading in hydrogen hydrogen field in Central Asia, and also it really depends on what is the reason why one country should adopt hydrogen energy, whether it is like decarbonization of internal like industry, power or transport, or whether it is aimed to go for the export. So depending on that, we can say like whether it should be developed within the nation or with regional cooperation. If it is about implementing hydrogen in internal market, then I think it should be maybe localized. But when we talk about export, of course, like since Kazakhstan has no, like any other Central Asian country, we don't have access to the destination markets. Certainly, countries need to cooperate to develop some value chain, especially for transport, maybe.
Thank you. In our own research, we kind of concluded that we should start with local clusters first, develop something like a very localized ecosystem, and then in the next phase, we might think about how to export, how to develop infrastructure to go beyond the region. And this is applicable not only to Central Asia, but practically to every sub-region, including the countries around the North Sea, for instance. So I totally agree with you. Now we will go to Mr. Azizbek Yerzernarov, who works for the Department for Development of Innovation Ecosystem Enterprises of the Agency of Innovative Development of the Republic of Uzbekistan. What I'd like to ask you is, Uzbekistan is centrally located, and now you have all other countries as neighbors. It's kind of a provocative question, but now maybe should Uzbekistan be the one to take the lead or become a hub of regional infrastructure value chains in this region, in Central Asia?
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to attend this kind of event. As you know, the society and economy, it doesn't stay at one place, and it requires us use more energy, and renewable energy sources might be the solutions of these kind of problems. And as you know, the natural energy sources are limited. That's why the transferring to the renewable energy sources is only one way, and it requires to make some kind of infrastructure, and it has some kind of problems of transportation and storage of hydrogen, and that's why we have to operate to rely in investments and innovation solutions to solve these kind of problems. And in Uzbekistan, last year, for the last 4 or 5 years, we made contracts, around 21 contracts for construction the renewable energy power plants. And by the end of this year, we are planning to launch the construction of the plant, hydrogen production plant, with a capacity around 3,000 tons annually. And also at 2021, by the decrees of the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, was signed as decrees of measurement of the development of renewable energy sources and hydrogen energy sources. And that's why the Agency for the Innovation Development is starting to make researches in this area. From our side, there was founded around, only recent years, was found around 8 projects. There are practical and innovation projects, and also 5 commercialization projects and 4 startup projects in the field of hydrogen energy. And also, from this year, we are planning to apply the project at Tashkent State Technical University, the program for preparing bachelor's degree in field of hydrogen energy. And after a few years, we are also planning to implement the master degree programs at the same university. And in conclusion, I may say that, and also last year we have sent around 12 new young scientists to the more developed countries in hydrogen energy to make internships, and I think generally that's all of them in the future maybe will help us to become one of the leaders in this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So let's go across the Caspian to hear from another possible leader in hydrogen business in this part. Mr. Fuad Hasanov is the deputy head for the hydrogen and green technologies of the Azeris Renewable Energy Agency. So hydrogen is part of your portfolio. So since you're kind of closer to the potential market, meaning Europe, than Central Asia, what do you think should, in developing hydrogen sector, one should look west with the view to sell hydrogen, or you look inward? So this is our central theme, export or domestic use. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, Azerbaijan has been known energy export countries for years, but now country is paying attention to establish low carbon hydrogen infrastructure. So countries' national priorities now include in clean environment and green growth. So I'm going to briefly present information on low carbon hydrogen related issues in the country. In order to assess domestic hydrogen demand, export opportunities, and economic feasibility, hydrogen working group was established under the co-chairing of Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Economy. The working group was cooperated with EBRD for the development of low carbon hydrogen economy market study, which submitted February this year. According to the market study, it shows that Azerbaijan renewable energy potential can create for the green hydrogen development, and existing natural gas infrastructures could be used for export purposes. As the country has a linkage with the European gas markets through gas pipeline infrastructures, in the long term, SGC, Southern Gas Corridor, could be utilized for export hydrogen blended with natural gas to the energy markets. Another option for the supply of green hydrogen could be separate hydrogen dedicated pipeline, but it also requires additional feasibility study to assess the technical and financial viability. Alternatively, the production and the export of green hydrogen or green ammonia could be considered as an option, taking into account that railway and pipeline connectivity with the neighboring countries. According to the market study, ammonia and methanol production, power generation, and district heating are possible application of hydrogen usage in the country. At the same time, BP Decarbonization Master Plan, offshore wind roadmap for Azerbaijan, which was prepared with the support of World Bank, both reports provides aspects of low carbon hydrogen usage in the country, such as high temperature industrial processes, long distance road and marine transport, energy storage systems, etc. The report also contains challenges regarding the green hydrogen export option. Taking these activities into account, country has a both option for hydrogen production development for domestic needs and export opportunities. In the short-term perspective, Azerbaijan could start decarbonization of its industrial clusters, such as refinery, methanol, and ammonia production facilities, where hydrogen is already used. Clean hydrogen substitution in demand will be critical, so Baku refinery, Baku steel, Sokar, carbamide, and methanol plants offer opportunities. Additionally, by developing offshore wind infrastructure, generated green hydrogen could be exported to the EU and Turkey as well. In order to utilize this potential, Ministry of Energy has already started to cooperate with foreign international energy companies that intend to realize green hydrogen project in Azerbaijan.
Thank you. One question, you mentioned blending,
Yes.
the possibility to use natural gas pipelines and inject certain percentage of hydrogen in them. Is there any regulation in terms of how far you can go? What percentage of hydrogen?
There is some challenges, contractual challenges, and because this pipeline committed to by 2040 to export only the natural gases. But after that, in the long-term perspective, by retrofitting, we can use the same pipeline for hydrogen export usage.
Thank you. Okay, we'll revisit. Thank you. Now we'll go to Ms. Dina Ashgalieva of the Asian Development Bank Institute. Among other things, Dina is the lead author of this publication. I'm advertising because it's available for free, so it's okay. This is, I'll read in Russian, Водород, стратегия декарбонизации в Азии и Тихоокеанского региона. What should I ask you then? You seem to know everything. What, in your view, what's the potential, real potential for hydrogen here in Central Asia?
Many thanks, Branko, for advertising our book. С вашего позволения, я буду говорить на русском для разнообразия. Специально спасибо большое за приглашение к этой великолепной сессии, Kaz Energy Forum. И специально к вашему мероприятию Азиатский банк развития, институт поторопился и сегодня запустил эту книгу в бесплатный доступ и даже частично сделал перевод на русский специально для аудитории Казахстана. Все в бесплатном доступе. Пока мы производили эту книгу, я многому научилась. Это тема, которая постоянно растет и все меняется. И даже то, что мы написали там в начале года, пока делали проверку, и выходит, что уже устарела информация, и пришлось срочно все обновлять. Вот, прежде чем ответить на вопрос по Центральной Азии, позвольте мне начать вообще, зачем Центральной Азии, вообще зачем нужен водород? Да, все сказали, что это очень дорого, гораздо дороже, чем возобновляемые источники энергии, чем солнечная энергия, ветровая. И многие спрашивают, ну раз так все дорого, так столько трудностей с этим водородом, зачем вообще нам нужен? Вот, позвольте мне начать с этого объяснения, что вот как Гумар Сергазин сказал, в Казахстане есть стратегия декарбонизации. И на самом деле не все сектора можно декарбонизировать очень легко с помощью солнечной и ветровой энергии. Не всем подходит электричество. Эти сектора называются на английском hard to abate sectors, то есть те сектора, которым нужны высокие температуры для производства, например, стали, и другие сектора, которые не могут использовать солнечную или ветровую энергию. Вот тогда, когда невозможно использовать солнечную и ветровую энергию, также ее трудно транспортировать, вот, и тогда на помощь приходит водород. И вот зачем же он нам нужен? Вообще во всем мире ожидается, что спрос на особенно зеленый водород будет расти. К сожалению, пока что вот из того, что водород производится, 70 миллионов тонн в год, это практически все из fossil fuel, из угля и из газа. Зеленого водорода там очень-очень мало. Вот. Но мы все ждем и ожидаем, что спрос на зеленый водород будет расти, так как вот эти все сектора будут стремиться к декарбонизации. Вот. В Центральной Азии, так как и во всех других странах, в Центральной Азии есть свои преимущества и свои недостатки с водородом. Я не знаю ни одного региона или страны, у которого не было проблем с развитием водорода. Наше преимущество в Центральной Азии – это то, что у нас есть огромные территории и очень маленькая плотность населения. Это позволяет нам производить больше возобновляемой электроэнергии, чем мы можем потребить. И вот этот избыток электричества, зеленого электричества, можно использовать для производства водорода. Также у нас в Казахстане еще есть Emission Trading Scheme, это система торговли эмиссиями, которая может стимулировать тоже развитие зеленого водорода. Также Европейский Союз выпустил Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, который тоже может стимулировать развитие зеленого водорода. Некоторые проблемы в Центральной Азии – это то, что доступ к воде. Водород производится, как вы знаете, H2O, вода – это H2O, делится H2O, отделяется, получается водород. Вот, то есть вода – необходимый ингредиент. И одной из проблем, которые нужно решать, это вот водород. И транспортировка. Мы, как landlocked countries называется на английском, у нас нет доступа к морю, то есть многие страны планируют транспортировать водород по морю, но так как мы landlocked, нам нужно продумать транспортировку. Но там есть решение, пути решения есть. То есть водород – это газ, что затрудняет транспортировку, то есть он легкий, газообразный, вот. Но можно его перевести, вот как Фауд Хасанов сказал, на зеленый аммоний, можно также его использовать для производства зеленого стали и других товаров, которые легче транспортировать. То есть не обязательно транспортировать и экспортировать сам водород, можно его в дальнейшем использовать для производства более легких commodities, там, стали, аммония, которые легче транспортировать. Вот так вот коротко, коротко, если сказать, суммировать, что в каждом регионе есть свои трудности и проблемы, но все эти проблемы можно найти пути решения. Спасибо.
Как закаляла зеленая сталь. Lately in the United Nations we promote, and the International Energy Agency also, to promote the idea to go beyond colors. I hear a lot of green things here, which is fine, but the latest what we use is low emission hydrogen. And now, what is low emission? It can be defined, or it depends on the national circumstances. But now we don't even use low carbon. We say low emission, and then later we hope to do something better. When we try to convince countries to go down this path of decarbonization, it's practically, we recognize that each country has to measure itself. Now imagine you put yourself on a scale, and your goal is to lose weight. So suppose you're overweight, you want to lose weight. You step on the scale, and it shows you a number. And then you have maybe somebody else uses a different scale with different accuracy, or it's totally wrong. The point here is, doesn't matter what the number shows. What really matters is that your weight is less than yesterday, and the day after that you're actually on the right path. And what is your scale, how it compares to other people? Are you fat or skinny? As long as you do the right thing, this is okay. And this is some sort of an approach that all paths are good as long as they lead to the outcome. So with this, I'd like to ask our friend and colleague Nurbek Yasetov, who's the hydrogen diplomat working at GIZ office in Kazakhstan here. And Germany is very strongly present in many parts of the world with the view to actually find where can hydrogen be produced and exported to the EU or Germany. And very much developing supply chains. When you mentioned some countries earlier, like Nigeria, other parts of Africa, but also from Central Asia. What do you do about that? How GIZ plans to foster collaboration and investment projects?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, and I'm actually glad that hydrogen is on the agenda, and we're talking about hydrogen on this energy forum. Indeed, Germany is one of the leaders in hydrogen economy, and the German government sees great potential in developing projects in various countries. And as you said, we have projects in Nigeria, in Angola, in Saudi Arabia, and recently, in the beginning of this year, we opened our office here in Astana, so-called Hydrogen Diplomacy Office. And coming to your second question about the fostering the investment, I would like to clear out that GIZ is not an investment agency per se, but we are a development agency. But our activities somehow help to improve the investment climate and attract investors into the country. So what do we do, and what activities we think that might help countries, and especially Central Asian countries, to attract investors, to improve the situation here? So first of all, it's a stakeholder engagement. We engage with various stakeholders, including ministries, including universities, including the experts, and also, of course, the private sector, to talk about problems, to talk about the potential. We do also engage in this policy formulation, regulatory framework work. As my colleague, Mr. Sergazin mentioned, they were working on the development of this hydrogen concept, and we are very glad that we took part in this work to help our colleagues to formulate and to develop that document. Another work that we do is so-called capacity building. So we organize workshops, we organize seminars. Actually, a few weeks ago, we conducted this two-day seminar for local experts, for representatives from ministries, from universities, to actually to teach about hydrogen economy, to teach about the hydrogen value chain, and we brought different experts from Germany. Another thing that we are very involved in is organizing and actually conducting studies, because we think that at this stage it is important to have this knowledge studies on the hydrogen value chain and economy. And one of the examples that I would like to share is the transportation study that we conducted. We analyzed how can we deliver the final product soon when the economy will be here from Kazakhstan to Europe, and what will be the challenges and what will be the barriers for that. Another study that we plan to conduct for the next year is actually related to water, because as my colleagues mentioned, water scarcity is a big issue, and we need to look deep into that issue and understand, okay, when we scale up this industry, what would be the impact? So yeah, as I said, we're not like bringing investors directly, but our activities actually help to improve the climate here, and finally, you know, we kind of bridge this information gap that might exist, because most of the times when investors come, when they want to come to the region, they start researching, and if there's a lack of information, you know, that might be a potential barrier. So by you know, holding those kind of dialogues or creating these studies, we, I think, bridge this information gap. So yeah, I think that's how we improve the situation.
Yeah, I think we're in the same business. It seems that when we talk about hydrogen projects in the United Nations, but also GIZ, as I hear, we mostly talk about awareness raising. We are going to tell the story about hydrogen. We don't talk about something tangible, some installation in the field. And that's unfortunate, but we have to recognize the fact this is where we stand in hydrogen business today. The principal path we propose when we talk about hydrogen is we say, okay, we'll take electricity from renewable energy, feed it electrolyzer, feed it into a fuel cell, and then here's electricity back. So we turn electricity to molecule and then back to electricity. And with this, practically, first step, we use about 60%, the second step about 60%, which means the total efficiency is about 36%, 1/3 more or less. Then some other losses, so it's not very efficient. At the same time, we do have some beautiful devices called the internal combustion engine or the gas turbine. And now the question is, can we use those can we feed hydrogen into gas turbine? That's why we invited Mr. Bisikawa from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to tell us, is it possible?
Yes, thank you. Let me maybe reply in Russian to support Dina. Most people in the audience speaks fluently. Коллеги, ну, что касается, на самом деле это очень хорошо, что дошло до того, куда водород девать, потому что очень много красивых слов о том, как его производить, как его транспортировать, да, но куда его на самом деле в конце концов утилизировать, это достаточно большой вопрос. В особенности, если мы подумаем о том, что транспорт сейчас еще не так развит, и водород как экспортный продукт, он еще не настолько легко возможен, потому что даже конверсия в аммиак и потом обратный крекинг, они все равно пока на данном этапе не представляют собой экономически оправданную модель. Поэтому с точки зрения использования водорода в качестве прямого топлива, конечно, в этом есть большая перспектива. Если мы посмотрим, например, на таксономию Европейского Союза, то для того, чтобы достичь приемлемого уровня, который указан в среднесрочной перспективе до 30 года, 270 грамм на киловатт-час, это как раз предполагает сжигание примерно 50% смеси водорода с газом, что является, в принципе, достаточно разумным с точки зрения техники. Переходя к технике, на самом деле здесь технологически промышленность готова, наверное, намного в большей степени, чем по многим другим направлениям. примерно я сейчас говорю не за Mitsubishi, да, а в принципе за всех основных производителей, примерно с 2025 года предполагается, что достаточно большое количество коммерческих технологий выйдут на рынок. Уже сейчас есть доказанные примеры сжигания водорода в газовых турбинах, в первую очередь, конечно, в газовых турбинах как основу генерации. Если говорить про нашу компанию, в 2022 году, примерно как раз год назад, мы провели первое коммерческое испытание 20% смеси водорода с газом в Соединенных Штатах, что привело примерно к 7% снижению выбросов СО2. Почему важно коммерчески? Да, потому что тут, конечно, каждый инвестор еще 10 раз подумает, использует ли водород, поскольку это достаточно сложная история. И мы предполагаем, что уже в ближайшем времени мы сможем испытывать и 50, и 100%. В том числе у нас есть свой водородный парк со своей электростанцией, где мы планируем это делать уже в самое ближайшее время.
Где он, парк?
На нашем заводе в Японии. Поэтому с точки зрения техники это возможно. Самое главное на самом деле заключается в чем? Турбина служит примерно 25 лет. Сейчас довольно большое количество проектов, которые реализуются в том числе здесь, в Казахстане, реализуются в соседних странах. И если мы сразу думаем о внутреннем рынке потребления водорода, о том, что мы в каком-то обозримом будущем, в горизонте 10 лет, например, будем переходить на сжигание смеси, то необходимо уже сейчас использовать те турбины современные, которые готовы, то, что называется hydrogen ready, которые готовы к конверсии на водородную смесь с минимальным техническим, коммерческим влиянием, то есть путем достаточно несложных модификаций. И как раз по этому пути идет Узбекистан, где уже сейчас поставляются такие турбины. И мы очень надеемся, что в Казахстане также уже сейчас будут использоваться турбины, которые через 10 лет можно будет перевести на такую смесь. Еще раз, технически, с точки зрения производителя, уже в горизонте нескольких лет мы считаем, что это вполне возможно.
Спасибо. I think we are ready now for, let's call it a second round of questions. We share questions with you, so I want to surprise you with questions that you have not received. One is actually about the technical constraints. I wanted to ask Mr. Abu to comment on this, but also Mr. Yesetov, you mentioned in your work that there are some constraints. So can you jointly tell us about if I'm to export 1 ton of hydrogen from Central Asia, East or West, what obstacles will I face?
Okay, I can start. Actually, there are many technical issues like any other low-carbon technology. So colleagues already mentioned about water scarcity, transport, but there is also one thing that I think we are forgetting. The one thing is R&D, local R&D. For example, when we are setting these goals that in hydrogen strategy that by this year we will be producing this much and consuming this much, so we need people who can operate these technologies. And as KMG, we recognize that having the technology and the R&D is important. That's why now we have established one of the first hydrogen laboratories in Kazakhstan.
Where is it?
It's located in West Kazakhstan. We are working with hydrogen storage and transportation technologies since KMG sees itself as a producer of hydrogen in longer term, and at the end of the day, for example, in a far future, when in Kazakhstan we will have hydrogen projects, it's important that more local resources can be involved into those projects, because we already have the example of oil and gas projects where local resources couldn't be involved as much due to the lack of I would say, R&D capacity, first of all.
So training is needed.
Training is essential, yes.
When talking about the technical constraints, especially if we talk about the transportation options, one of the constraints would be hydrogen requires high pressure and applying like very low temperatures, which it is, of course, technically feasible, but economically, would it be like feasible or not? That's the question. We do have the existing pipeline infrastructure that can be retrofitted to export hydrogen and hydrogen-related products, but again, it needs to be studied because those pipelines were built back in the days during the USSR, and the existing quality of the existing state is under the question. Another constraint would be if we export through Caspian Sea. We don't have a fleet to use, and building ships here or importing ships would be another issue that we need to take into account. What else? Railroad. Right now, the railroad capacity is, I think, I might be wrong, but it's actually used to its full potential. So it will require investment in railroad infrastructure and so on and so on. So yes, I think that those would be the main technical constraints that we need to take into account.
I think it's fair to say that hydrogen is notoriously difficult to be contained and transported and kept in a gaseous form. That's why we often explore other ways of somehow capturing it into some liquid hydrocarbons or perhaps the ammonia. I'd like to ask a question I think somehow emerged from this discussion, and I see in the audience a lot of our guests from Japan, and Japan supports the idea of a low-emission ammonia as a medium to transport hydrogen. What do you think? Is it really possible to do this low-emission or low-carbon ammonia? I'd like to also ask Mr. Sergazin if you have if you please feel free. I'm asking all of you to comment on the prospects of producing low-emission ammonia in Kazakhstan and in Central Asia and how to export it. Currently, by the way, the longest pipeline for ammonia goes from Tolyatti, Russia to Odessa, Ukraine, which is about, I don't know, 2,000 plus kilometers. Maybe we need something similar. So who wants to speculate on the ammonia, Central Asia?
Let me maybe, as you mentioned, Japan, so I can partially say it. So actually, in terms of transport, this is one story. In terms of production of low-carbon ammonia, this is also quite challenging because you can produce low-carbon ammonia, let's say, if we produce it not from green, as we have this water scarcity, but we produce it from blue, from gas, then you should either produce hydrogen and feed hydrogen into ammonia process, into reforming, or you should capture CO2 which is produced during the reforming process. Then when you capture CO2, this is a question where you put CO2. There should be the legal framework and the incentive to store CO2. And vice versa, if you produce hydrogen, then okay, that will be quite costly. And the question is whether there is a fair price for such low carbon ammonia, considering also transportation route. So this is like from let's say industry side, our headache. But as for the transport, I guess it's really a question where you transport. Yeah, because if you think about Europe, this is one side. But if you think about, for example, China, that maybe could be the better market for ammonia export. So that's my personal opinion.
Anybody else? Okay, so
let me. Thank you very much. And taking account that the solar potential of Uzbekistan is very high, the production of hydrogen might be a little bit effectively for us, and taking account that we transferring the hydrogen to the ammonia is the best way to transport it to the another countries. And I will join to the Mr. Biskalo that I think China's market is the best place to transfer our ammonia. Thank you.
I think you open a very interesting topic, both of you, which is if you are to export, which way to go. And you may go on land via pipelines or railway, but you may also go trans-Caspian, which is a bit more complicated, multimodal, maybe trucks and then ships and then pipeline, and then I'm talking about, say, if you go Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. But now it's not only that from Turkmenistan you export to Azerbaijan, but it can be the other way around. It could go east. So what's your take on this trans-Caspian collaboration?
It's really challenging because right now SOCAR is the main gas producer company in our country. So they are conducting research on exporting of hydrogen through Southern Gas Corridor. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have existing pipeline infrastructure. And in the nearest term, we can start with Turkey because we have very narrow short distance with this country. So depending on their demand, we can supply depending on the contractual agreement, because we have it's a fully committed till by the 2040. So it gives us some problems when we are starting to export hydrogen with blending natural gas. But it could be possible to design new pipeline dedicated separately hydrogen pipeline, but it also requires additional assessment of the volumes, of the size, and the distance of this hydrogen.
It seems to be very complicated, to say the least, you know, the proposition to do it through under the Caspian or so on. Maybe
it's technical issues.
Yeah. So it seems that the market, if you are to produce hydrogen in Central Asia and you have it in quantities to export, it seems what is emerging today is that maybe Asia is a better market. So Dina, what do you think about experiences in the other parts of like the whole Asia, East Asia, South Asia, and how those experiences can be applied here?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Excellent question. Позвольте мне снова на русском. Да, меня очень интересовал опыт разных стран. И вот, как Гурмар Сергазин сказал, многие страны пытаются развить водород, и многие страны на начальном этапе, но тем не менее, кто-то скажет, что слишком рано, но тем не менее, это, мне кажется, очень показалось полезным опытом смотреть на другие страны, как они развиваются. Значит, мы посмотрели на разные страны в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе, и я поделила их на две группы. Есть страны потенциальные импортеры водорода и страны потенциальные экспортеры. То есть как они ведут себя, зависит от того, собираются ли они экспортировать и импортировать. Потенциальные импортеры водорода – это Япония, Корея, например, и потенциальные экспортеры – это, например, Индия, Юго-Восточная Азия и Центральная Азия. То есть те, кто собирается производить больше водорода, чем могут потребить сами, и будут использовать водород в качестве дохода от экспорта. Вот. И я подумала, на кого же нужно смотреть в Центральной Азии, на чей опыт лучше, импортеров или экспортеров. Я пришла к решению, надо смотреть и тех, так как импортеры – это потенциальные страны, которые могут купить водород, и на экспортеры надо смотреть тоже, как они развивают, можно поучиться их опыту. Ну, так как время ограничено, можно я сделаю один пример. Это страна Индия. У них очень-очень амбициозные цели по водороду. Возможно, будет одной из лидирующих стран-экспортеров, производителей в мире за счет, так как у них большой потенциал возобновляемых источников энергии, и они уже в прошлом году, да, по-моему, уже год как назад сделали национальную стратегию, многие политики, вот как тоже Гумар Сигазин называл, то, что планируется в Казахстане, они это также планируют для поддержки бизнеса. И вот что интересно, они делают водородные долины. Вот все, наверное, слышали силиконовые долины, а теперь у нас новый термин такой — водородные долины. И вот Индия определила 10 штатов, это области, по-нашему говоря, 10 областей, у которых есть две характеристики. То есть это у них есть возобновляемые источники энергии, то есть есть энергия, электричество, для которого можно производить водород. И второе условие — есть потенциальный спрос. То есть там есть либо производство стали, либо производство удобрений, либо нефтеобработка. То есть те, кто потенциально могут использовать этот водород, так как вот сегодня мы говорили, транспортировать очень проблематично и много проблем возникает. И вот поэтому они сделали такие водородные, они планируют такие водородные долины, где есть и производство будет, и спрос. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Дин. I think hydrogen economy does not only mean to take electricity and produce hydrogen, it also means to produce components, to produce electrolyzers, other equipment needed, including renewable energy generators. According to the International Energy Agency report just released, more than 40% of electrolyzers are produced in China, and that ratio is increasing. We expect soon to be over 50%. So when you add Korea, Japan, and so on, practically you can safely say that electrolyzers are produced in East Asia. My question is, can some of this production be somehow organized here in Kazakhstan and neighboring countries, that you are part of manufacturing efforts?
When we talk about the electrolyzers, I think it requires critical energy, critical metals that are component of these electrolyzers, whether it is iridium or like the components of the electrolyzers. So as I know, in Central Asia we have, in Kazakhstan, for example, we have lots of these elements that are essential components of the electrolyzer, or not just electrolyzer, but fuel cell and most of the critical elements in low carbon technology. And in most of the geologic exploration in the country is focused on the petroleum and some hydrocarbon liquids, but not much dedicated to the exploration of these metals. And I think localizing such manufacturing facilities is quite possible in future. Yeah.
Anybody else wants to comment?
Yeah, I would like just to add a few points. Yes, of course, it is important to localize potentially those electrolyzers here.
Local content.
Yes, local content to increase, and it's it's on Kazakhstan's agenda. But we need to also understand that it's very important to create this enabling environment to produce those electrolyzers through special economic zones, or maybe tax incentives. Or also another issue that we need to look into is, do we have a skilled labor who will be working in those factories, who will be producing those electrolyzers? And if we don't have, then we need to start investing into the creating the educational programs that in future might help us to establish that production facilities.
We've also looked into some projects about decarbonizing some industrial sectors in Kazakhstan, but not only in Kazakhstan. You have relatively old, say, metallurgical complexes like Temirtau, for instance, where you produce steel. These are privately owned companies. So if you tell them, look, do not use coke and coal, use hydrogen, it's very easy to say, but first of all, you have to invest money to produce the same steel, and now you are not going to be able to sell it for more money than otherwise. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, you know. You want to decarbonize, yet you want everybody else to decarbonize. So if you go first, and I think somebody did say here somehow, if you become the first to decarbonize, you simply make your production more expensive, and you become not competitive. And I think many European member states feel this way, to say, yeah, we will go this way if everybody else does the same. Yet somebody has to be first. So my question to all of you is, how can we start this value chain with those industrial sectors? Is there really possibility for that or not?
Можно я? Ну, если позволите, также на русском языке продолжу.
Конечно, да.
Да. Ну вот до этого было отмечено при выступлении. Для начала вот мы на сегодняшний момент в мировой повестке тренд — это развитие водородной энергетики. Да? Мы понимаем, как развивать водородную энергетику, как она, ну, имеется в виду, как производится этот водород, да? Но обратный же вопрос дальний — это транспортировки и хранение его. Поэтому это, в принципе, не только мы, когда молодая страна, с этим сталкиваемся, так и другие страны. Поэтому неопределенно необходима нам нормативно-правовая база, соответствующие стандарты, регламенты. Вот чем мы в настоящий момент, как мы государственный орган, начинаем заниматься. Вот мы совместно с сообществом, в принципе, и бизнесом, и международными организациями совместно уже разработали такой проект документа, где будут соответствующие привилегии, рассматриваться, ну, предусматриваться, как я говорил, 4 этапа. И этот документ, я думаю, даст уже такой импульс для именно и как для научной базы, для наших научных сотрудников, так и для нашего бизнеса и всем сопутствующим, кто будет оказывать к именно развитию водорода. Да? И я думаю, вот этот основной документ начальный, потому что скрывать не будем, у нас не было никакой нормативной правовой базы, ни соответствующего такого документа, как вот стратегии либо концепции. Изначально мы пошли, думали, стратегия, потому что это основной документ, такой крупный, большой. Но в стратегии мы детально, как в концепции, мы ничего не опишем. Поэтому мы взяли на себя удар и как бы разрабатываем именно концепцию, где мы детально все расписываем, к нему будет идти план мероприятия. Я думаю, мы до конца года постараемся утвердить эту данную концепцию. И, соответственно, в рамках нее уже будем дальше идти и разрабатывать соответствующие нормативные правовые акты. Обратно же мы идем к тому, что да, у нас есть закон, допустим, об электроэнергетике, есть закон о возобновляемых источниках энергии, но нет закона об альтернативных источниках энергии, да, также и куда и подпадает водород. Когда мы выстроим нормативную базу, соответствующие стандарты, и где будут предусматриваться и льготные моменты, там и в налоговый кодекс можем зайти, то, конечно, у нас, я думаю, это даст большой импульс нашим как и местному бизнесу, так и привлечению соответствующих инвестиций для развития водорода. Ну и там же, соответственно, у нас и наука пойдет вперед в части развития водорода.
Спасибо, Маграм. We at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe are trying to develop a portfolio of projects that would address some of those things, including simply the answering question, can hydrogen economy be developed and what needs to be done in a given country? And the answer may well be no, not now, not at those certain conditions, that something else needs to happen. So we are trying to provide a good service, not to just promote the idea, let's decarbonize, this is the way to go. We say this is certainly the way to consider and see how it may happen, but the answers may really be different. So we are developing something like 5 principles. One of them is that there are several paths. This is what I told you about the scale, that everybody should monitor his own weight, not look at the others. So with this, I think it's show time, I believe. You want to show us something, right? Yes. Is there a tone? Thank you so much. I'd like to ask our audience if you have any question to any of our panelists today. No? Here's one.
Меня зовут Даур, вообще я занимаюсь биогазом. Вот. У меня пока здесь специалисты по водороду, мне хотелось бы задать вопрос, какие перспективы биоводорода? Это рассматривается? Биоводород, биологическим путем
биологической массой.
Да. Получение биологическим методом за счет бактерий.
Any hero to step up? If I may just start, when we talk about hydrogen production, we are now starting a new project dealing with 4 parts of production: from renewable electricity, from gas with carbon capture and storage, from biomass, and from pyrolysis. I don't want to talk about pyrolysis now, but these are of natural gas. So these, in principle, different ways. But if anybody wants to add about biomass, please.
Технология, которую я знаю про водород, вообще есть несколько методов. Можно получить путем пиролиза, либо путем газификации. Вот, когда мы говорим про газификацию, там водозабор на килограмм водорода, он намного выше, чем у голубого водорода и у зеленого водорода. И, то есть, это, мне кажется, будет вообще сильно ухудшать проблему с водой в Центральной Азии.
I think you mentioned coal gasification. Maybe we should talk a bit about that, because in some countries, as a way to produce hydrogen, yes or no?
I think it still applies to the coal as well. The water intensity of coal gasification is still very higher than the hydrogen, I mean the green hydrogen or gray hydrogen. Yeah. So I think it will cause even more stress to the water issue in the region.
Yeah, coal gasification means producing it from water, basically.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Any other question from the audience? If not, Ms. Hamrakulova, please.
Thank you. I have a little remark, or also to say that today we discussed a lot about the potential for hydrogen production, and also in this was just mentioned in the context of also water use or water scarcity in the region. We actually at UNECE start also looking into this, let's say, topic, into this area, and I see the GIZ is also working. I think this is very actual for this region in particularly. And this also can affect actually the development of the sector, whether it is feasible in a given circumstances and in future projections on the usage of water, on its possibility. These aspects will be also discussed during the Almaty Energy Forum that we will have, and it will be held on from 6 to 8 November in Almaty, obviously at the Kazakh British Technical University. And that will also have a session separately on critical raw materials, where we also can see, again, in connection to this, that because we also discussed today how is that can affect also hydrogen production in a sense. So this is my final remark, maybe just to invite all of you to Almaty Energy Forum, where we will be happy to see you, and we also hope for your active participation. Thank you.
Well, with this, thank you all for your attention, and big thank you for all our panelists, Mr. Sergazin, of course, and I hope we'll continue discussing hydrogen in years to come here. Thank you all.